Report number 1, Efteling, the Netherlands. In this video, we will be reporting on our first ever experience at Efteling, the magical fantasy theme park located in the Netherlands. We'll be talking about various rides and attractions across the park, what makes the park so fantastic, and why we believe you have to visit this park. Please grab your magnifying glass and proceed to the rest of the video. New detectives may join by pressing the subscribe or follow buttons. Many thanks. Efteling is a fantasy-based theme park in Kaatsheuvel in the Netherlands, and it is probably the most important park to any Dutch person you speak to. If you ask them, hey, have you been to Efteling? They're going to say, yeah, I've been once before, or once this year, or once this month, or even once this week. It is so ingrained into Dutch culture that you cannot avoid the love and the adoration for this park from the locals. Based across its fantasy settings, it looks into different myths, legends, fairy tales, fables, folklore, romanticism. There's just so much culture within this park. And with it being such an old park as well, it's just grown, adapted and evolved through the years. And it is absolutely such a delight. The park itself started as a park with a Fairytale Forest, a walk-through attraction which we'll touch on in a bit, and has grown into what it is today with tons of amusement rides, 6 different roller coasters and 4 dark rides. And can I just say, some of the dark rides are absolutely marvellous and some of the best I've ever ridden, in all honesty. But we'll get to them, there's plenty more to report on. When you first get to the park, you're greeted with the House of the Five Senses, which is the entrance to Efteling. It's got these 5 points on essentially what looks like a sort of stable with a thatched roof, and I think that gives such a great impression to begin with of the fantasy folklore that you're going to be entering into. As you walk straight through, you're greeted by beautiful stained glass windows and then a lake. The best parks have lakes in them, don't they? And with this one, you can either go to the right or to the left. It's worth noting at this point that if you're a hotel guest, you're staying on property somewhere because it is a full resort. You do get early access to rides, and that's if you go down to the right-hand side. We did, unfortunately, make this incorrect decision one morning and went to the left. And if you go to the left, you're going to find the gates that are closed, and therefore you can't get through. If you go to the right, you'll head towards Fata Morgana, and then you can carry on to the rest of the park from there. However, let's talk about the park itself. We're going to start with the Fairytale Forest. So, the park itself opened up as a nature park in 1951, and then it was the Fairytale Forest that opened a year later in 1952. The Fairytale Forest itself is such a huge part of the park in the terms of it is actually such a big size, but also it's so integral to the park. Seeing quite a few people say, yeah, we've been to Efteling, we've done the park, but have completely missed out the Fairytale Forest. I can appreciate for sure that it's not everyone's cup of tea, not everyone's there to necessarily go through walk-through attractions and take their time with it, but Efteling is best taken in when you give it time. I mean, 2 days minimum, perhaps even 3, to really experience and immerse yourself in everything the park has to offer, and the Fairytale Forest is certainly one of those things. It's an absolute must-do for the park. There are so many iconic parts of this section of the park. You've got Long Neck, you've got the fairy tale tree, you've got the guy on his magic carpet, I don't know his name, sorry, as he's crossing across from the 2 different buildings, blowing his little musical instrument and having the tulips rise up. There's so much to see and do, and so many little nooks and crannies and paths to explore. We were very detailed, very methodical with our approach, and we still missed some sections. And whilst we were there, we saw that they were building new sections as well. It's still evolving, still growing to this day, and it's such a big part of Efteling history. If you're not going to the Fairytale Forest, you are missing what I'd say is probably the heart of Efteling, unfortunately. So please make sure you do check that out when you head there. If you do carry on past the Fairytale Forest, you're going to get to one of the older parts of the park. And here you've got one of our favourite dark rides, and this is Droomvlucht, which does translate to Dream Flight. It's a very nostalgic, old school style dark ride. Imagine small fairy animatronics, lots of movement, lots of greenery, shrubbery, but then also some sort of like retro, sci-fi, space age floating castles and stuff. I think that's the best way to describe some of the scenes. Despite it being an old ride and an older style dark ride, it doesn't lose its charm. It doesn't lose its appeal. Droomvlucht itself, I would say, doesn't look old. It looks vintage. It looks well kept, and it's just magical. The story itself is told through scenes. There's no audio except for the music, which is absolutely beautiful. And you're slowly rising throughout each of these scenes until you get to one of the penultimate ones, and then you've got this really fast spiral back down to the bottom, and you're getting lots of different angles of this scene. And each of the scenes themselves actually are quite deep, really. There's so much going on. As soon as we had our first ride, we went straight back round and got to look at it all again, because there's so much detail in there. And to think that that's been there for such a long time as well is such a testament to the park and to the history of the park. And I really hope the park can preserve it for a longer time, because it is absolutely magical and we adore it so much. If you carry on north from where Droomvlucht and Villa Volta are, you're going to get to one of the older sections of the park. My highlight of this older area of the park is the Stoomcarrousel, which is this fantastically beautiful vintage carousel. And it is absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. It's not currently steam operated, but it is still intact in the way it was many, many years ago. And if you love that really sort of vintage golden funfair look to a carousel, this is one you need to see. It's located entirely indoors, so it's perfect for any sort of weather. There's actually seating around it as well, so you can sit in there, have a snack, have your food that you might have brought, grab a drink from the bar nearby, and just embrace it. And with that music as well, that gorgeous organ, oh, it's absolutely incredible. In that same building, but located in a different entrance going around the back, is a diorama as well, and that ties in with Anton Pieck, who had a hand, let's say, actually that's such a understatement, he had a massive part to play in the design and the look and the feel of the park. And if you want to find out more about him, there's an even greater part in this area, and that's the Anton Pieck Museum, which goes into everything about his life and how he's basically built the lore and the fairy tale and the craft of Efteling. And this design that he's brought has carried on into what it is today. And it's such a specific look and style. And I think very easily put is that if it wasn't for him, Efteling wouldn't look and feel the way it does today. So certainly worth checking out if you love that sort of thing. In this same area is Carnaval Festival, a dark ride which is very similar in a way to It's a Small World. It's got lots of different people from different countries singing along to this song, and it's like a 9 to 10 minute sort of ride. It does take a while. There are some questionable stereotypes in there, which was a shame to see, because I feel like with Efteling being the very sort of park that they present themselves to be, I was surprised to see these stereotypes in there. Some people have agreed and said, yeah, you're right, it is questionable, but it used to be a lot worse. So it's good that the park have updated it, but I feel like they should probably be updating that a little bit more in this day and age. If you take the path east around the perimeter, you're going to be heading along the lake, where you can see an absolutely gorgeous boat ride that we got to do in the golden hour of our second day, and this is Gondoletta. It gives you great views of Symbolica, great views of the Pagode, and great views of Baron as well. Plenty of natural wildlife, and it was amazing just to watch the birds playing with each other and being silly little feather things. But it's a very nice chilled experience, and I imagine on a hot summer's day you can get on there, take a picnic with yourself, enjoy it. Really embrace that sort of 5 to 10 minute ride and just chill out. It's great that Efteling, as much as it is a theme park, it's still very much a park as well. It's still such a calm and beautiful park, and I think that really makes it as well. It really adds on to that sort of magical element, the fact that it's such a getaway sort of a place. Python, super old school Vekoma roller coaster. It was actually the first roller coaster built in the park. It has been replaced in 2018 for a like-for-like replacement, but one of my favourite bits about it isn't the very long lift hill that people aren't too keen about, but what I do actually love, it really reminds me of a snake skeleton, and the way the Vekoma track sort of splinters off from the main beam and then brings itself back up for the guide rails of the trains. There's something very visually pleasing to look at about the ride. However, it's not themed like everything else. Yes, it has a name, it's called Python, but it's just sort of stuck where it is. It feels like it's just slapped down in that area, which it probably was at the time, to be fair. I'd love to see it very well themed. I'd love to see it updated or brought in with either the area itself, which probably wouldn't make too much sense because we've got a bit of a pirate thing going on nearby, but I could see it maybe being part of a future thing, or realistically, if they were stuck for land, I assume this would be the first one to go. Yes, I can hear you now saying, no, don't take out Python, it's a classic. Saying that, it's already been demolished once in 2018, which was 8 years ago at this point, so realistically, I don't think it'll be going anywhere, and I do hope then if they're going to expand behind this area of the park perhaps, that they're going to bring Python into that theme and really update it and give it some of that Efteling love. In the same area is the Flying Dutchman, which Detective Whitmore assures me is a fantastic water coaster. However, with it being a 365 park, as I alluded to before, it wasn't open at the time of us visiting, and so it's something that I will need to be investigating and reporting on in the future. However, what was open on the other side of that lake is Joris on the Draak, which translates basically to George and the Dragon. Two fantastic dueling GCI wooden coasters. I love GCI wooden coasters. I think they are absolutely marvellous. My favourite in the UK will be Wickerman over at Alton Towers. And there's such good story, theming and everything around that. And the layout itself is very compact, very dense, very twisty and turny. And I've really come to love that with GCIs. And these two dueling coasters are no different. The dueling element really, really makes this ride. It's so fun, weaving under, over, side to side from your other side. You've got fire and water battling each other. There's flags and little parades going off when you do enter the brake run and the station. And it's a very fun, competitive element to the ride. But that doesn't take away from the layout at all. The layout itself works very well. It's not as compact as Wickerman. However, it does have plenty of twists and turns. It just stretches out further, more of an out and back sort of layout, if you will. Out of the two, I'm going to say that the blue side is better, as you have a better first drop on it, and I think some of those later elements are more fun as well in the way that it ducks and weaves around the other tracks. So if you're stuck for time and need to do one, do blue. However, ideally, you want to be doing both. South of Piranha, going back to the lake, is Fata Morgana. This is another very old school dark ride, but you're in a boat. And this gives it a very Pirates of the Caribbean meets the Arabian Nights sort of feel. Whereas the puppets themselves are marionettes, old wooden dolls, lots of rotating wheels inside, which are giving them their movements. It does look a little janky in parts, but it really adds to the charm of it. It doesn't feel quite as perfectly captured and kept as Droomvlucht does, but being on the water in those boats is really fun. The smells in there are absolutely stunning, and it's one of the smells that you can take home with you as well. We weren't able to at the time. Not something we could post home. It wasn't in our allowance for our flight back, but certainly it needs to bring some of that glorious Fata Morgana smell back with us next time we visit the park. It was here as well at Fata Morgana where we noticed that the brand new hotel being opened at the front of the park was the same colours as Fata Morgana, and I noticed that if you were to spin around on the spot outside at the entrance to the ride, you would get a sort of, in your line of vision, you would get the same sort of colours, and the hotel would fill that out. And that's when we clocked onto the fact that a lot of the colours in the park are the same sort of pastel browns and blues. And again, this is all very intentional from Anton Pieck to have these sort of similar colours running through the park, and it's that sort of attention to detail, that immersion and that thought around the culture and history and the fairy tale element that really brings everything together. Nothing looks out of place, including Max and Moritz. This is slightly north of the lake and is one of the first rides that you'll actually get to if you head left around the lake. Dueling coasters that replace the old bobsled coaster that used to be here, but these two dueling coasters were very fun. Mac powered trains, you get 2 laps on them, and they're surprisingly twisty actually. They were great fun. The theme in itself is very much aimed at the kids. It's 2 little kids who are up to no good. There's farting in the queue line. There's lots of paint and fingerprints and trouble knocking about, but they were a great way to start the day. If you've got younger ones, this is the coaster for them. This is the one that they're going to want to ride. And as much as it is a dueling coaster, you're going in opposite directions, and the second lap is even quicker. But that music, there's music on board those trains the whole way through, and in the second lap, it speeds up. It really adds to the kooky, fun, silly element of the ride. You're going to love that. If you've got kids, they're going to love it. If you're a big kid, you're going to love it. North of Max and Moritz, though, is the brand new for 2024 Danse Macabre. This is a wonderful, wonderful ride. It replaces the old Spook Slot attraction, which was there, and it actually features some of the Spook Slot parts that were in that original attraction. But this is a one-of-a-kind stage motion attraction from Intamin. Intamin being one of my personal favourite ride manufacturers. They've made loads of great dark rides, flat rides, roller coasters, the lot. And this is the first of its kind, and it is superb. It's a great ride itself, but the way that Efteling have incorporated the story, the land and lore around it to build into that story, and then the show itself, it's essentially a dark ride meets a sort of performance from the animatronics. into this spooky, somewhat camp ride spectacle. It's incredible and is, dare I say, my favourite ride in the park. I could wax lyrical about this for much, much longer, and I'm not going to do, because it certainly deserves its own report at another date. But this is where the queues were at when we were visiting. It is certainly worth your time. Please do not miss this attraction. You will be seeing more of these. And if they can be any better than Danse Macabre, I will be very surprised, because Efteling and Intamin with Danse Macabre have set a very, very high bar here. Further north from Danse Macabre and Piranha is Baron 1898. This is a Bollinger and Mabillard dive coaster, very similar to Oblivion, referencing Alton Towers. That was the first ever dive coaster. However, Baron 1898 is the better dive coaster. Oblivion's good in the sense that it's one drop. It's a fantastic drop. You go into this big tunnel, you come out, you're done. It's a very short ride, but it's the one-trick pony. It's a one-hit wonder. It does what it needs to do. Baron goes into a tunnel. There's loads of smoke and mist, but then when you come out, you're going straight into a first inversion, coming back down into a second inversion. It does more than Oblivion, but the theming, the story, the pre-show are what make this ride so magical. It's set around mining and goes into Dutch history around mining. There's lots of ghosts in the pre-show, and then in the pre-show when you're actually on the first block section before you head up into that lift hill, and there's loads of music. There's projection mapping, which never faltered when we were there. It was always working, always specifically, exactly on point where it needed to be. It looked gorgeous. It really added so much magic to this ride. The fact that they are ghosts, obviously, brings so much more to it, and it's fantastic. The structure itself, with the lift hill going up into the first drop, this whole mining tower, the big cog on the top, the fact that the bell rings before you drop down and you are held, like with other dive coasters, at that top before you plummet down. It's absolutely stunning. And just behind that, the park have recently announced they're going to be building some family drop towers, which will further expand into that story. And that's only going to add further to the capacity of the park. And it's really going to bring that mini land even more life than it already has. And I can't wait to see that in the future. Pagode is this observation tower that you do really need to get on. I say you need to get on it. It's not a necessity, but if you love the beauty of the park, if you really want to see it from a high place, then this is obviously the place to go. It was great to get on it on our first day and for me to really understand just how vast this park is, how big it is. At this point, everything was very new, very misunderstood to myself because I was trying to figure out where things were. I'd seen videos, I'd seen photos, I knew what to expect, but I didn't know how it all laid out. And getting to see it from above was certainly a new experience, as much as it all was a new experience at that time. And as much as I'm saying now it's not a necessity, if you have time, please get on it. If you enjoy Efteling for what it is, for the fact that it is this massive park with so much culture, so much love and magic, then you're going to really enjoy this, to just appreciate the beauty of the park. I think that's the main thing about Pagode. And just next to Pagode, but round a couple of turns, is Symbolica. This is the park's newest and most impressive dark ride. It's a trackless ride system, which means that the vehicles you're sat in don't follow any sort of rail. They move around with magnets located under the floor, and that pulls them around. But what's really cool with these trackless systems is that each car can go its own way. So when you're queuing up, you've got 3 different options to choose from: heroes, magic, and music. There's a part in the ride where you do split off into different rooms based on the path you've chosen. You then go into a main room after that and take a slightly different route and see a different animatronic doing a different thing to the other 2 options of the one that you're on. A lot of people really love this ride, and as much as we did enjoy it, it wasn't one of our favourites. We preferred Droomvlucht as the dark ride option of the park, but I can understand why a lot of people enjoy it, not necessarily just around recency bias, but because there's so much history with the main character that's in this ride, and that's Pagode. He's the sort of jester mascot of the park, and he's been around for a very long time. So imagine you're local, you've been going here as a child up until an adult, bringing your own children there, and you can then take your kids onto the ride, and you've got Pagode, and you can tell them all about Pagode, and I understand that cultural element and how it's so important. However, for me though, and we did speak about this in case 78, and a lot of people did agree, was that it doesn't quite hit the mark. It's not that it's not impressive, it's not that it's not good to look at. Whilst Droomvlucht has this nostalgic magic, Symbolica sort of misses the magic in a way, which is interesting to say because the ride itself is a very magical story. But I feel that the better room in there is one of the first rooms you enter, this sort of astronomy room, and Pagode's cast some spells, and that's really cool. But it doesn't have a big showpiece at the end. I think of Droomvlucht, and each scene was so full of depth but Symbolica doesn't have that big finale. There's a room towards the end where you're dancing, but it's not on such a big scale. I think of Droomvlucht and I think of that massive spiral that you have right before you get to the end few scenes, and that spiral room itself was so big, so grand in scale. But Symbolica just doesn't have that, unfortunately. Still a great ride, don't get me wrong. Symbolica still does a great job for the budget it has. It fits the park. It doesn't need to be this big cinematic spectacle. It just doesn't quite hit the mark for me or for Detective Whitmore, and Droomvlucht would be the ride we'd prefer to be repeating if we had the choice. There's been a lot of key words within this report. I've mentioned a lot about history, about the lore, about the love, about the attention to detail, about the culture that plays a big part within Efteling, and all of those things make it so magical. Here at the agency between us, we've been to many parks across Europe and in America as well, and I can safely say that Efteling is one of my favourite, if not favourite parks that I've ever been to. I prefer the fantasy element. I prefer getting lost in something completely new and to wander and explore and enjoy. But I really understood the passion, the culture for Efteling, and I'm so glad that I got it and I understood it, because it really made me love and appreciate the park so much more, to the level that I imagine a lot of the locals love it too as well. I'm not going to have that same cultural connection, that same nostalgic connection, because I've not grown up with the park. However, because the park does so well to preserve its history with the likes of Droomvlucht and the Fairytale Forest and the Stoomcarrousel, there's just so much there for you to soak in, so much there for you to just understand and take a part of. And that's why, as I said at the beginning, I think that the Fairytale Forest is such an integral part of any Efteling exploration and trip. You really need to be getting in there to fully walk around and understand where the park started and how all of these new elements, theming, rides have grown, adapted and evolved into the park being where it is today. This park is absolutely fantastic. We had 3 days there and I could certainly stay there for longer. It's not the sort of park that I would necessarily be sticking at one ride and riding again and again and again. It's the sort of park that I would maybe ride one ride and then go to the next ride and really try and share my time across everything, because there's so much that needs to be seen. And yeah, we had 3 days there, but we still didn't do everything because it needs time. The park needs time, it needs attention, it needs you to really fall in love and really immerse yourself in the world that is Efteling. The park itself is so loved by locals. It's such a big part of Dutch culture, Dutch history and the local area, that I've heard many rumours from our detectives that the park itself is looking to expand and has received confirmation from local authorities that they can expand. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what this new area is going to be. Is it going to be expanding on some themes that are already there, or is it going to be something completely new? I don't know what to expect, but I tell you what, I can't wait to find out, because this park needs to live forever and ever for generations to come. It is certainly one of a kind and I can't fault it. If you have enjoyed this first ever report from us here at the Miracle Detective Agency, then please do like the video, let us know in the comments. Did we miss anything that you think should be reported on? Or do you just like our take and thoughts on the park in this report? Please do let us know. Of course, there's many more cases, investigations and reports to come here at the Miracle Detective Agency. So for now, this is Detective Miracle signing out, and that is Case Closed.